And we are back. Um, One of the things you just said, I really like. When you're having someone assess, you're having people come in and do different things to see where they sit, and you're asking them what went well today. Asking someone what they didn't like and to write that down is so important
Hmm.
because making a list about things that you like doing is really important. But 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 for a long time, I never thought about what I didn't want to do. I just knew work sucks. Well, work doesn't. I love my job now.
Yeah.
Now, you really do have to sometimes focus on what don't I like about this. Because if it's four out of five things, maybe you can deal with it. But
Yeah.
sometimes those four things are somewhere else, and the fifth thing isn't there. So I really like that you do that.
So I
Uh,
do have a great idea for a program for interns, and I really got this from corporate. Although I have very little corporate background because I was always deemed the one who spoke out of place, always had an idea, and it wasn't my turn to give the idea, but I
mhm.
always spoke my mind anyway because that's who I was.
Good.
But anyway, that didn't work very well for a lot of corporate environments. But the little bit of corporate that I did work, I did learn two very important things. One was around sales and branding.
Hmm.
So my brand is everything to me. That's why I love that you're wearing your Columbia,
Yeah.
hat and the tech dry tools, and again, supporting the companies, and just being your brand
Yeah.
all the time. So
All
like
day.
not just when you are working, but like if you are out, like I take my niece out, for ice cream or pizza or whatever, and somebody is happens to ask a question, like you are your brand all the time. And then the second thing is structure. Young kids like structure. They've come from schools, even if they did not excel well in school, they still came from some sort of structure.
Yeah.
If they did not come from structure, that's why the military works really well to like jerk kids into getting structure
Yeah.
because they need it.
And with a
Um,
sledgehammer. Yeah.
and the construction industry, I feel like, is an alternative to that,
Yeah.
right? So either way, you get some sort of structure, and ensuring that they have structure is really important. But also, I want to have like a rotational program very similar to some of the corporate banks that I worked with. I would see some of these college grads, very young, bright kids in their mid 20s,
Hmm.
just recently graduating from fourth or fifth year of college and getting their first job in banking. And it was a rotational analyst program
Okay.
where they would work with a certain crew, like in our world,
Yep. Yep.
for them it was like a department. For us it's a crew, and they would literally rotate with a crew for 6 months for like 3 years, and then they would learn all the different aspects of banking, within
Yeah.
that organization, and then they would get to pick, and they
The-
would do these questionnaires and things. And so that's kind of where I got the idea from, to do the questionnaires
Yeah.
and to ask the questions, or ask them to send me like a report, like all the assistant project managers or project managers, when they go out to the field, even if they call me, like they have to send me a report with
Good.
photos,
Yeah.
and
I don't,
note
just because we talk
everything.
on the phone doesn't mean you don't do your paperwork. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, also just because we're a small company of like 4 to 5 people
Yep.
and a bunch of subs, doesn't mean that we can't have structure,
Yeah.
because we're not going to be a small company forever.
That's the whole thing is if you
Yeah.
are you taking everything as seriously as if it was a hundred
Yeah.
million dollar company
My
and
ADD
it
is like me moving around the chair. I'm so
that's
sorry
okay.
for
No,
anybody watching on YouTube.
I did.
Yes.
I always have that moment where I like see
Like,
people like moving and jump playing, or if I did that on a chair, I'd be on the floor. You know what I mean? If I was, I've always kind of like been a little jealous. It looks way more comfy. Um, yeah.
sorry.
So that, so what was that? Would have been a group of associates going around working underneath different
Executives.
analysts.
Mhm.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I'm doing with the two people that I'm like training
Mm,
and working with. Um, I'm not doing it every 6 months because I just don't have that
a lot.
many like that volume. But what I am doing is that at every single job, I'm having them work with different people as
Something.
the helper. And it's usually a different trade. So while, one job you might work with us with the demolition crew, the next job you might be just helping out our tech sub with, low voltage wiring, and the next job you might be helping the framing crew,
Yeah.
the next job you might be, so on and so forth. So, and even to the point where like I've taken the burliest of men and put them to do taping, and they like calm down and become like the most delicate,
Yeah.
beautiful, and same thing with painting. And I'm like, okay, you're a painter, forget the rough stuff. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're next. Okay. And that's how I really find out like where people are good. Because if I were to say, hey, what do you want to try, or what do you like? Um, because they've always been the strong kid
Yeah.
that's always had to like lift the heavy stuff, then they think that they only belong doing rough carpentry
Yes.
or masonry or whatever. But really, they were very into, I don't know, pottery class in high school, and they're actually very good and delicate with their hands,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they're just really great at paying attention to detail, and they need to work with electricians and plumbers because those are the people that we need there so that everything is all nice and buttoned up. So we have no fires and no leaks.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah, a lot of things interest me. I look at like intricate tile work, and I look at electrical. Like when you see new panel go in and it's done properly, I could see myself really liking that. There's
Mhm.
nothing about HVAC that interests me at all.
Nothing about
There's
HVAC that
nothing
interests
about
me
it.
either.
One of my best friends is a real high up in one of the big companies. They just, oh, I better not say. Um, uh, but he loves it. It's
Yeah.
like it's what turns his crank, man. And I can't see it at all. And but it's good. There is a different trade for everybody, and it's
Yep.
what it, I was in sales for a long time. And
Mhm.
when I went in and started doing framing and boarding, I'm like, this is awesome. You
Yeah.
really do start to enjoy it. Um, I've been fortunate enough that I've been pretty good at everything that I've kind of dipped my hands into. And I've enjoyed like doing structural work and a little bit more finessey carpentry stuff. Um, I just couldn't imagine going to work every day and not enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah, there were days. So I have to say that I fell into construction
Hmm.
um because of a tragedy, to be really honest with
Yeah,
you.
kind of. Yeah.
And to be really fair, like I never in a million years would have thought that I would have enjoyed the hands-on work as much as I do. Um, I truly do believe, like you said, there is like a trade for everybody. And I'm great at the project administration stuff. I'm amazing at the project management.
Hmm.
There are other people on my team that are just way better at that than me. And you know what? They actually enjoy it.
Hmm.
I loathe it.
Yeah.
I am more of the visionary that wants to like see this whole product come together and come
Yeah.
to life. And much like you, out of chance and just needing the work, and just trying different things, I've worked with a lot of different crews, from
Hmm.
a framing crew, to working with a drywall crew where all we did was put boards up and then move to the next job and then put boards up and then move to
Yeah.
the next job. And, I've worked with a tiling crew. God, I hate tile work,
It's
but I
so
can
like,
appreciate it and I know how to do
yes.
it if I need to. I love and again, found this by chance. I thoroughly enjoy the finish phase of going in, yes, making sure that all the walls are framed properly,
Mhm.
because I think that, and I remember having a conversation with an engineer about this, and I literally wanted to reach across the screen and smack him, you know. But he was like, "Oh, well, it doesn't matter if the walls are straight or blah blah blah, because the finishers will." Fix everything up. And plus, it's commercial, so it doesn't really matter. It's going to get knocked down in like 2 years anyway. And I was like,
Yeah, that's heartbreaking.
but that's how a lot of people think.
It
And
really is.
when I go to some of these commercial spaces in New York, particularly now where we're looking at retail spaces for clients that closed during COVID, like
Yeah,
those spaces recently got built out. And my clients are asking me if we can use anything that's there. And I'm like, it doesn't meet your quality standard
yeah,
level. Like we could, but it's going to look like crud.
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, your brain does that right away. If you're looking at stuff and it's wrong and like you're picking out things that are not done properly or don't look crisp, it gives you this like feeling that whatever's in that space is not done properly and
hmm
it's not done well. Like it's a knee-jerk reaction when you see that, but
hmm
yeah, it just reeks like people cut corners here. And unfortunately that kind of reflects on the person that's using the space. Um,
It
we
does, or sometimes it reflects on the landlord.
oh, 100% it's the
Um,
landlord.
you know, I feel like a lot of times the landlords, for example, I rent an office in the city and I could have recorded this down there, but then I would have like gotten home like entirely way too late.
Yeah.
But there is, when I do my Zooms, I get really annoyed. There's like a column behind me, and there was a leak and part of the drywall is messed up, and I am
Uh,
a drywall sub, and I have offered to just fix it because A, that's like my corner of the office and
yeah.
like I want it to be beautiful, and B, the landlord like doesn't want to fix it and I'm not allowed to touch it because the landlord has his people, and like I'm not even billing for it. Like a
Yeah.
part of me just wants to like go there on a weekend, fix it, and like pretend that the landlord did
Well,
it.
and I mean, if you fix it, the guy that gets sent there to fix it is going to be like, yeah, it's done, and he's going to bill for it.
Well, not
A
only
hundred
that, it's
percent.
also going to be fixed to like, again, like highest quality
Yeah.
standards. When I was shopping for like finishing tools, once I fell in love with it and I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to specialize in. We're
Yeah.
going to run 3 different crews. I'm going to bring in, the crews that have experience and
Yeah.
then kind of experience and train them to do it the GloJoy way.
Yes.
And then they're not, these are crews that are running around, they're doing jobs, but they don't know how to manage the money. They don't know how to manage the material. They don't know how to estimate it, whatever. So a lot of times they come to me and they ask me if I have work.
Hmm.
They do good work. They show up on time, like they can bang commercial jobs out, like
Oh yeah.
in and out. But there's certain things that I like a certain way, just like I'm sure you
Yeah.
like certain
Oh
things a
yeah.
certain way. And 95% of my business comes from referrals.
Yeah.
Very little of it, only up until recently, as I've built my social media and stuff, have I started to get any type of leads from any type of marketing efforts that I've done outside of people that know me and people that I've done work for already.
Hmm.
So and our spaces last. Like I can send people to a space I built 5 years ago if they want to check out my
Yeah.
work, and I know that it still looks good. you know? And that's a really good feeling, you know what I mean? So I know that nobody wants to train anybody, and I know that there is a
Yeah.
cost to it. I have applied to different programs within my community and my county, to help subsidize some of the money that I am losing,
Hmm.
for a keeping people in the community employed,
Yeah.
and B, also training these people in new skills that then they can take somewhere else. You know, a lot of times, these kids, and I call them kids because, you know,
They're kids.
they're kids. Yeah, these kids, they come from a gig economy anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm not the only person they work for. I know that a lot of them like to work in production, and I love taking people from the fashion industry and from production here in New York because
That'd be cool.
they know what working 12 hours is like. In fact, when I ask them for a daily rate, they always give me a 12-hour rate. And I'm like, sweet. We don't do that in construction,
That a
but
boy.
good to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. 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 That's
You know, like we've got rules here, but you know, I can't have you on set, you know, that long. But yeah. Anyway, I pull from different industries to fill whatever voids I have.
yeah.
And, you know, I have a background in many different things, as you and I have spoken
Yeah.
about. So, you know, I just tap into my connections and my cell phone. And if I need somebody for something, I will find it.
Yeah.
You
Same.
know? Yeah. Otherwise, me and YouTube, I've got 3 screens here, homie.
Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty wicked. Yeah. I
Yeah.
like that a lot. I
Yeah. Yeah.
this is gonna evolve into something because I would like to have a bigger screen and we need to get some cameras eventually, but it's we'll see. This is just off your Mac, right? What you're looking at now?
I'm looking at you off
Yes.
my Mac. And
So
then I
clear.
have 2 other screens over
Mm-hmm.
here, which I use to edit video
Yep.
and content, but more importantly, to read plans.
Yes.
Because the plans come with the tiniest little tiny fine print in the
Yeah.
planet. And even with my old lady glasses, I still can't read it. So just
Yeah.
having a big
Just
screen.
roll that ball and it zooms right in on it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can have multiple pages open at the same
Yep.
time.
Yeah.
So I can compare a previous set with a new set.
Or like
Some of the
referencing
small
sections or yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the smaller projects we work on are not going to have, you know, a plan set. You know, we're
Mhm.
just going to go in and say, okay, this job is 95 boards, you know, and we're going to bill $5, $6 a board. If you want, you know, a level 5, level 7 finish, we bill whatever. If it's got a special type of ceiling, or, you know, so we add on to it. And I'm being super transparent here because I
Yeah.
think people should know what we bill, you know, per board, just as an industry. And that's just, you know, kind of on average, I think, starting rate. I know that it really varies. I've spoken to people in other parts of the country where they're billing $1.50 a board. You know?
It's
uh,
crazy.
yeah. So I mean, it really varies. I like the pricing per board thing.
Mhm.
I know how to do it. I can estimate my materials at the same time,
Yeah.
and it rose. But sometimes I'm also pricing on number of laborers and what the cost per laborer is.
Yeah.
Because just because I'm paying a guy X number of dollars a day, that's not what it costs me to
No.
hire the guy
Yeah.
or the girl. You know, that's not the cost of goods sold, you know.
Yeah.
So I have to factor that in also.
The other part of that is when you're doing like a board foot price or a linear price or a square foot price or whatever, you have to have somebody that really knows what they're doing, or they need to be quoting that same type of price. Because if you get a guy or girl that's doing hourly work into a quoted area and they're not exactly who they need to be, you're going to hemorrhage money. It's
Yeah. I I only have one crew that's capable of doing that for me
yeah,
outside of me and one helper.
yeah.
So typically we'll run 2 jobs at a time at
Hmm.
most, doing any type of boarding and taping,
That's smart.
because I know our capabilities. And here in New York, we have these things called capability statements. I don't know if they have them where you are.
Oh, cool.
But it's basically like a resume for construction
Yeah.
companies. And so like when we bid a job, we'll submit a capability
Right.
statement and like we'll tell them, okay, these are the size jobs we're able to do, and this is how quickly we can turn them over. And sometimes, both crews will work together, because we have that large of a job. But, like you said, now we have guys. I have one guy that I've started to test out, but I've got to train him. He's a little messy.
Yeah.
But he's a one-man band, and he's using Columbia tools or something
Yep.
of that nature. I can't still for the life of me. I still tape old school.
Yeah.
Can't figure out how to use those roller things.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a skill. It's a skill. And you also need to have some serious muscle.
I heard you're not a stranger to that, which I was a little taken by, because
Yeah.
it seemed like you are doing so much anyways. And then when you were like, you used to bodybuild, I was just like, a lot of people say they used to bodybuild.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And then, dude, you show me, I was just like, oh, you were competing. Jesus.
Yeah, so there's a long story to that actually, which I'll make super brief,
Sure.
but I was a very insecure
Mm.
young lady, and I came from a background in dance.
Okay.
And dance and doing yoga and all of that stuff was kind of like my happy place, like my free place.
Yeah.
I got in an accident and I needed to have surgery on my left shoulder and my left hip, which meant no more dancing.
Yeah.
And that's really where my construction life started and a bunch of stuff, because I ended up moving to Texas to have a surgery and also to just do my physical therapy, which was like a 9-month process. I effectively needed to relearn how to walk. As a part of physical therapy, I had to lift weights, and I had
Yes.
never lifted in my life. Like
Yeah.
ever. Like when I tell you I hadn't lifted, this is so embarrassing. Like I could not even curl those little baby 3-pound weights. Like I was that pathetically weak.
That's
Like it
good.
it was so bad. So when I was done with my physical therapy, and they do a full body physical therapy because your hip is connected to everything, like your core. And so you need to just be strong
Yep.
overall. And then your shoulder, you got your upper body. You know, the physical therapist that I was working with discharged me, and I got PO'd.
Hmm.
I was like, no, what am I supposed to do now? And he was like, you have to continue working out 4 days a week. This is your program, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm not good unless I have somebody to check in with. I'll
Yeah.
still pay for it if my insurance doesn't, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well, I've got patients, and we've got this wait list, and, blah, blah, blah. It was not an option. And so I was like, well, can you recommend somebody?
He's like
Right.
a trainer. That's what a trainer is.
Yeah, that's what a trainer is. So yeah, he actually recommended me to a trainer, and him and the trainer both were like, hey, you've been a dancer your whole life.
Yeah.
You used to do competitive dancing. You want to work towards something so that you make sure you do your physical therapy. Then why don't you try natural bodybuilding? And
Yeah.
you'll train for a competition for the next 6 months. That'll lead you through the end of your physical therapy.
Yep.
And you have this whole story also to tell people that you couldn't even walk 2 years ago, and now you're
Yes.
in plastic high heels on a stage,
All right.
strutting your stuff. So yeah, so it was a thing. And I learned so much about you can pretty much do anything
Keep
doing
failing
that.
at it. Just keep failing. You'll eventually do it.
I did. I failed at so much I wanted to quit so many times, but I was sponsored by some pretty large brands at the time. I had a
Oh my gosh.
very large social media following, and I
Okay.
owned my own fitness brand. I thought I was going to be like a fitness entrepreneur and
Yeah.
open up gyms and do all this stuff, and that flopped. But it mostly flopped because I realized that, much like dance or theater or anything like that, it was an industry that was over sexualized, and I wanted no part in that.
Yeah.
I ended up getting stalked and all kinds of stuff from just building a huge social media.
Yeah.
And, it just, the whole thing left such a bad taste in my mouth that I even closed all my social media and didn't come back until the pandemic, as a construction worker.
Yeah.
So
I
You
that's
know?
a killer, man, these days. And even the people that are really good at social media, like I had the tile chick on. I know Shannon, and
Mhm.
you know,
I just
her.
listened to her pod that she did with Bread to Build, and she talked about this
This is
whole,
exactly what I was about to say. I just finished it. Yeah,
yeah,
and you're gonna quit everything because some idiot. It,
I've
it
almost quit a bunch of times, to be
yeah.
honest with you. I mean, I started this part-time while I was still a banker in 2017. I was
Mm-hmm.
flipping houses, very similar to Shannon, and her fiance. And I only know them by like that tile chick in
Yeah.
Swoltega.
And
So
Chris,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
he's such a
Chris.
gorilla. He's a huge human being for the size of him. That
Yeah,
was
so
like, uh,
anyway, but I went there, I was flipping houses too, and I was
yeah,
working with investors, and I was the construction project manager because my family had come from a construction background, and I didn't know my, left hand from my right hand and my butthole from whatever. I was just winging it. I
yeah,
had a real estate license. I mean, I still made my investors a ton of money.
yeah,
I still made the numbers work, even if sometimes I had to do the work myself. And again, that's really where a lot of this kind of was a transition from being a banker to
yeah,
this and realtor to this. And I still do real estate. I still work with real estate developers. So I don't think I ever got out of real estate. I'm on a different side now. I'm playing on a
yeah.
different team.
Well,
And the sexualization part of it, some of the young ladies, and you have seen me do the parade of girls in my stories, and this will continue.
yeah,
Okay, I am going to continue to share stories and share accounts of young ladies who are not half naked
mhm,
and or posing sexually to get more likes or more endorsement deals. And I'm talking now to all the brands too.
yeah,
Okay, I love brands that really focus on quality of work. I see, Columbia Tools and a few others that work with, some of the taping queen,
yeah,
drywall shorty, and
mhm,
some of the other girls who are literally just showing off work. And I
yeah,
love to see that. And then I see other brands that are much larger that are endorsing young ladies who have
I,
no reason to do what they're doing. And all they do is give every other woman, young lady,
yeah,
or hardworking veteran who has been doing this for 45 years plus, paving the way for
yeah.
us to be on site, a bad rap,
Well,
you
what they're
know?
doing is they're doing a disservice, right, to the community
Mhm.
because if absolutely, if you want to, if that's what you're bringing to the table is your appearance and that's what you're going to go with, give her, but don't put a tool belt on. Right?
No,
Because what you're doing there is you're showing the dinosaur men that are still on the planet that okay, so when attractive women wear tool belts, I can Google at them. No, you can't. We don't do that shit here anymore. It is a totally
no.
different place now. And I gravitate to the women in the trades that are kicking ass because it's like, look right here. She's better than you at your job. How dare
Mhm.
you look at her other than that? Right? It just makes sense and there's still so much of it going. It's shocking the amount of it that's still going on. And it's not like
It,
behind closed doors, it's on social media. People
it,
posting in their social media onto other social media being a pig. I
Oh
just
yeah,
don't get it.
even in the comments, for that, we'll use Shannon for that
Yeah,
example, that tile chick. It's like, oh, look at her and her little photo op, and then somebody else comes and does the work. No, Shannon does all the
yeah,
work. Like, and so does Chris. Like, I mean, it's so obvious if you know anything about anything that they are like overly like studied on everything that has to do with tile and
yeah,
every product that they use and everything. It's one of the reasons that I follow them. And one of the main reasons that I was like, you know what? I'm not going to try to learn tile.
yeah,
I'm just going to always hire a tile expert, and I have amazing tile subs, and you know what? They are not cheap, and I am more than happy to pay them.
Yep.
I posted in our new business account a reel of, a recent tile job that we were working on, and I had some pretty major accounts share it. And it's because those lines, they're crisp. They're
Yeah.
perfect, like it's, and some engineers reshared it saying like, love a good quality tile job. And like, to me, like, I'm like, those are my subs.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so quality matters. It really, really does. And drywall is one of those things. And that's where we circle back to drywall and the
Mm-hmm.
finishing. What the walls look like, the finished product, I take full pride in that, because
Same.
that finished product is like, that's what everybody's going to see every day.
Mm-hmm.
So who cares if the framing is great? If the butt joints are not like lining up properly, and they weren't like floated down and sanded properly, and the wall is not like perfectly level, then everybody's going to see that. And in commercial jobs for us, like if you only tape over the seam, like if you only do one coat over the seam,
Mm-hmm.
guess what? That ish is going to crack
Yeah.
in a commercial building. And I see it all the time,
And if it doesn't, it's going to flash, or we're going to see it through the paint. Like
whatever. Yeah,
it's a reflection of the installer. And that's,
of
I
course.
think that's why I like drywall and finishing the most, is
Hmm.
it is a reflection of you. If you care, it shows. If you're like, this is the bare minimum, and it's passable, and that's good enough for you, that tells me a lot about you. Um, yeah.
Well, I typically will ask clients, when I'm qualifying them, because I feel like the qualifying process is so important.
Yes.
And I'm speaking to all the people who are like starting their contracting business.
Mm-hmm.
I am relatively new to the contracting side of things, even though I've been a construction project manager for years. When you're starting your contracting business, it is okay to say no to jobs. In fact, you need to say more to no jobs,
Yeah.
so that you can get the jobs that you need to. And qualifying the client, I think, is where, as contractors, even myself, starting off, fail, because we just want to build our portfolio.
Just grab
So,
everything like this
yeah.
and fucking hemorrhage money through all of it.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
shit
I
does
do.
not,
I did that. Yeah.
yeah, that shit does not work. Also, working residential and commercial
Yeah.
does not work.
You kind of have to pick a monster to fight. Yeah. Yeah.
You do. And we do both, and we do it eloquently, but we started with commercial, and all the residential jobs we do are for commercial clients, so pre-existing clients.
Perfect.
They know our work. And I have a crew, or I do it myself, that is the one that does the houses, right? So again, really, really particular on that. And we don't do a lot of houses. Usually it's a vacation house, it's a flip house. It's something for an investor. So it's still within the realm of my real estate world. I truly do believe, as my marketing consultant says, the riches are in the niches.
Yeah.
And so, as I grow my contracting business, we will niche to drywall. I mean, those are the jobs that make us the most money.
Yeah.
Those are the jobs where the skill set is in the most high demand right now. I don't know where you are at, but I mean, people can't find good drywallers here.
There is no labor shortage. There is a quality labor shortage.
Well,
And
yes, I'm sorry. There's a
it's
quality labor
starving.
shortage. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
quality labor shortage.
And
Um,
yeah, they Royce from the Three-Way says um good workers aren't celebrated, they're exploited.
mhm,
Because it's so rare.
mhm.
Right, there is this ocean of bad work out there, so when you are good and you've made an example, or built yourself a name, people are going to flock to it, and you'll be busy, then you up your price, and that's kind of the game, right?
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely.
Okay, that's a good time to have another break, I think.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Oh,
So do you break these up into chapters